Are you feeling overwhelmed and uncertain about how to scale your business sustainably? Do you have big dreams for your business, but you're struggling to turn them into reality? Or maybe you're just tired of sacrificing your health, your well being, time with your family, and your own self care all in the pursuit of success. Not only is this not sustainable, but it can lead to increased stress and decreased productivity in the long run. Don't let the chaos of running a business hold you back any longer. Join our 12-month Real Women, Real Business Mastery program and start building the business of your dream with clarity and confidence. If you're ready to achieve six-figure plus revenue growth, rediscover your passion for your business, and say goodbye to overwork, then let's chat. Book a free business planning session at aboutshaunalyn.com/plan. Check out the link in the show notes. Hello and welcome to the Real Women, Real Business podcast. I am your host, Shauna Lynn Simon, and today I've got a great guest joining us. Today's guest is actually living proof that the best business ideas often tend to come from following your passion. So I think this is really going to hit home with my accidental CEOs out there who followed a passion and really wanted to make a business out of it. So sometimes it takes a bit of a completely unexpected type of turn, and this guest can certainly attest to that. She's gone from navigating ice roads to navigating the male-dominated fishing industry. But Linda Leary has never been afraid to chart her own course. So today, her company Fishe has grown from a small Anchorage, Alaska, that's right, you heard that correctly, a small Anchorage startup into a nationally recognized brand that's been revolutionizing women's fishing apparel with bold, functional designs. And through Fishe and her other venture, which is women's fly fishing, she's building communities and mentoring the next generation of female entrepreneurs and outdoor enthusiasts. So please welcome to the Real Women, Real Business podcast, the founder, president, and visionary behind Fishe, Linda Leary. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Shauna Lynn. Appreciate it.
I think this is just such a great story. So you were actually featured on Ice Road Truckers. Is this correct?
I owned the company. I was partners in the company that had the show. We filmed in Alaska. I didn't get to be on the show, but
Gotcha.
our
But
employees were.
You were there behind the scenes, so you were part of the show. That's pretty exciting.
Yes.
And that's,
Yes.
I mean, I can only imagine how that impacts your day-to-day operations when suddenly you've got this film crew now joining you on all the things.
That's right. Yeah, we had they're mostly based in Fairbanks, and so there were at least 10 folks from the film crew filming our team for at least a couple of months every winter in the worst time of the year. So
wow, I can't even imagine some of the. I recall catching a few episodes of the show, and I mean, it's just so wild the conditions that you deal with. I do live in Canada. My winters are very real here, but slightly shorter and slightly less severe. I would think than Alaska. So, okay, so tell me how you went from Ice Road Truckers and this logistics company to founding a woman's fishing apparel brand. It's a bit of a pivot.
Yeah, bit of a pivot. So probably before I even came to Alaska, I grew up in Maine, and my dad was a big fly fisherman. So I fished with him since I was a kid, and moved to Alaska and was lucky enough to continue doing a lot of fishing, and fell in the trucking industry and did that for almost 30 years. And was a partner in a trucking company, and we were lucky enough to be featured in Ice Road Truckers when they filmed in Alaska. And at that time, there were a lot of reality shows being filmed in Alaska. There were film credits and things like that were going on that were causing some of that. But it was super fun and very wild stories that we would get.
I can only imagine. So, okay, so you grew up in Maine. You said you were fishing with your dad, and you always had this passion for it, and you kept it up when you moved to Alaska. How did you go from, this hobby of fishing to I'm going to create a women's apparel brand? Like, what were you noticing was missing, I guess, that inspired this?
Yeah, so we used to take clients fishing a lot when I was in trucking, and I always made sure we had a group of gals at least for one of the trips. And we'd be out on the river, and I'd notice, gosh, most of the clothes you're wearing aren't their own, they're wearing their dad's or their husband's long johns and things like that, that when you take your waders off after fishing, you don't want to hang out in front of
Totally
everybody
fair.
at the
Yeah.
lodge and in that. So why not have clothes as a base layer that you can go right from river to restaurant, or go hang out with people and visit and not have be embarrassed with what you're wearing, and then have it fit too. And it doesn't have to be tan, brown, or green. It could be fun and colorful. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's something to be said for blending in with nature, but as women, we like to stand out from nature a little bit. So
yeah,
want to be a little bit more loud, a little bit more bold. So,
yeah.
so did you start this brand while you were still in the trucking industry, or was this after you had left the trucking industry?
It was after I had left. We sold our company, and I left a few months after we had sold it, and decided that was one of the things that I wanted to do, was to start this up as well as working full time in another role. So just kind of sat down. I took a few months to about 6 months to get it up and running and started, and did lots of whiteboarding and yellow sticky notes everywhere, trying to figure out what I wanted it to look like. And my thought was, why nobody was doing it, so why couldn't I do it? So
Right. What would you say were some of the most surprising things as you're getting started in this? I mean, I'm guessing this is the first time you ever decided to create your own apparel brand. So I'm sure there's probably some things along the way
yes.
that you weren't quite expecting. Like, what were some of the surprising elements maybe that you encountered?
Uh, I did not understand I knew this language of trucking and transportation logistics, and I'd been running our company the last 5 years before we sold it. So I knew the basics of running a business, but so that part we had down, but like manufacturing, I didn't know that at all. So, you always want to have a good network of people around you that are friends, that, you help them and they help you. So asked lots of questions. I bought a book called Manufacturing 101 on Amazon, because
Perfect. Yes. Great way
like
to do it.
I need to research. And then just lots of conversations with people, trying to sort through what it could look like and how to do it. So lots
Okay,
of
so
help along the way.
So you mentioned that, your experience in logistics was somewhat applicable in starting your own business. You understood the business side of things. What would you say were some of the things that you were able to bring from your past experience over into this new business?
I mean, I think just understanding how to set up, your books, and how, you needed insurance, you needed to have a name, you needed to have a trademarked, and they, just some of those real basics were key to doing that.
Okay. And so, getting into the women's fishing apparel, did you find some resistance along the way from the existing brands that were there? Because again, you're kind of entering into this with a more female focus, or did you find that it was sort of embraced in the industry of like, yes, this is something that we've always needed. Like, let's do this.
Um, I felt like it was something that was going to be needed, and it was embraced. Nobody else was doing it. You have a lot of the bigger brands that were doing some things for women, but it wasn't a tremendous amount, and they were so big, they weren't nimble enough to make changes like we did.
Right, right. No, that makes sense. When I think of fishing, I'll admit I don't tend to think of women fishing, and yet, of course, I know that there is a huge market there. Was that a part of your getting set up of like identifying like what market exists there that needs to be served, or did you already know like there's tons of women that are already doing this, that want to be doing this, that I know I'm going to be able to serve?
I worked with the Economic Development Corporation here in Alaska, and did a little bit of research on, the size of the market and how big it was. And I knew that there were a lot, and maybe in Alaska, there's a lot of women that like to fish, but
Hmm.
around the nation, there's 21 million women with fishing licenses.
Oh, wow.
So there's a
That's
few gals that like to fish. And let alone, for me, it's fun to just create a brand that is also a lifestyle brand. and it allows us to have clothes to wear to feel part of that community and to be able to build that out for us, for
Right.
the gals. Yeah.
Now, like I said, I do kind of think of this as being sort of a male-dominated industry. Have you found that that's been a challenge in building this business? Have you, I mean, I think almost every woman can tell a story, at least one, if not multiple stories of being underestimated at times or spoken down to. Are you finding that, that you're being respected in the industry and that you are being really welcomed into it?
Yeah, I mean, most of my career, whether it was trucking, oil and gas work, or fishing like I'm doing now, is definitely there aren't as many women in it, but I've never let it be something that stopped me. And I think that's the one cool thing about Alaska is that it doesn't matter if you're a guy or a gal, it's just whoever can do the job. And so you're respected, you're respected for that, but you have to also prove yourself. So that's a part of it. And I coming into the fishing, though I had been in trucking and oil and gas for years, what I noticed with fishing is they were a bit behind some of the other industries I'd been in. And you saw people being, anxious about the fact that they felt like they had a harder time as a female. And I just would tell them, it'll come around. I've seen it before.
Right.
I'm just doing it again. And
Right.
it's totally fine. But honestly, I try to not think of it as something to hold me back. I would say the only area that I do notice it is, and I think this is for women in general, is funding. We've been trying to do capital raises the last couple of years, and
Hmm.
the funding for women and small business is drastically underfunded compared to others. So that's probably one area that I see.
Yeah, that's interesting. What are some of the things maybe that you've done to try to overcome that? Are you looking more specifically at a particular type of funding that's a little bit more open to women, or are you just trying to break down the barriers wherever you can?
Yeah, trying to break down the barriers, and have good people around us working. I'm a big believer in having networks of people that work with you that you also give, you maybe you work with them in something in an area that you're not as strong in, but always make sure that you offer more to them and help than they give you. And so that's always been really helpful for me. And so
I
just
agree.
continue to do that.
Yeah, I think it's so important. They say that you are the people that you surround yourself with, and it's so
Hmm.
true. And I mean, and that's not limited to those within physical proximity either. And I'm sure you've probably built your network beyond Alaska, as much as I'm
Yes.
sure that you've worked with your resources there and really capitalized on and leveraged those. But yeah, we have to expand our own networks and find the people that are going to be like-minded, that are going to support us, that are going to raise us up, and they're going to help us to move forward because we are only as strong as the people that we surround ourselves
Mhm.
with, quite honestly. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important. You
Yeah.
know what? I think this is a great place to take a break. So we'll be right back after this quick message. We'll be right back after this quick message. This episode of the Real Women, Real Business podcast is brought to you by, well, potentially you. Are you passionate about helping female entrepreneurs build stronger, work smarter, and dream bigger? We're looking for strategic partners who understand that success doesn't have to come with sacrifice and stress. Our podcast reaches accidental CEOs who are ready to turn their Swiss cheese knowledge into solid business foundations. With 30% month over month growth, we're redefining how working hard looks and feels for passionate entrepreneurs. Visit aboutshaunaLynn.com/partner to learn how you can join us in building sustainable, passion-driven businesses. And welcome back to the Real Women, Real Business podcast. All right, welcome back to the Real Women, Real Business podcast, where I'm being joined by Linda Leary, the president of Fishe, which is a women's fishing apparel line. And we were talking about how she's been navigating the male-dominated industry of fishing and how she's managed to really embrace the partners that she has and leverage the opportunities that come her way, which I think is so important for women, for all women today, no matter what industry you're in, regardless of whether or not it's male dominated. We really need to ensure that we are leveraging those partnerships and making the most of those connections that we have, because we are who we surround ourselves with. So, on that note, with Fishy and the women's fly fishing that you're doing, you're really creating spaces for women that they can come together as a community. How has this community building approach influenced your business strategy as you've been building the business?
Um, it's been really fun. I'm a big collaborator as it is, so it's so fun to bring people together that enjoy, um, the same things. And it's kind of a safe place for a lot of gals, where they can learn with friends or on their own and not have necessarily their partner there. Don't know what to
Yeah.
do, but
We all need space sometimes.
you
Yes.
need some space. You need some space, and I think women listen and teach differently.
Hmm.
And women are very good listeners to coaching. So that makes it really fun. But we have, fishy, and then we have women's fly fishing. And with women's fly fishing, we do hosted trips and we teach gals how to fly fish. And it's just such a nice combination with the two together, and it's an opportunity to really bring the community closer together and do events and things like that that are super fun. So,
Well, and I can imagine for a lot of women, like, yeah, it must be a really great escape and break from the norm. And,
hmm
I know it's still work for you, but I'm sure that you get a lot of um, energizing. It's an energizing experience for everyone. Yeah.
yeah.
Now, you've grown Fishy into like a national brand. Like you're not just serving Anchorage, Alaska. You've really grown
Mm-mm,
into a
mm-mm.
national brand, which is not an easy thing to do for anyone, to break beyond their local barriers. What were some of the decisions that you made that helped you to move to that national stage?
Well, having grown up in trucking, I knew that if you're going to scale your business, you can't just depend on the local market because you're going to saturate it at some point. So you need to expand into well, we call it the lower 48, expand, oh,
Right.
because
Yeah.
we're way up here,
Sure.
uh,
Yeah.
expand national. And so I had experience doing national sales on the trucking side and having terminals in different states. So that didn't bother me at all. And, really picking partners that we work with, like we're, for a girl from Maine, we're in LL Bean, and some other key wholesale or retail accounts that, support working with women and support fishing. There's not a lot like what we do. We're very
Hmm.
art based, and we create a fish and then make it fun and give it fun names. And so,
And so what were some of the ways that you managed to get into some of those bigger accounts? I mean, that's a pretty big deal being with LL Bean. Like,
yeah.
how did you manage to get your foot in the door there? Is there any sort of strategy, or is it just like I knew someone, or like how did you manage
You
to do
know,
that?
I'm trying to remember. I think I just reached out to them, and we collab with Orvis and with Extra Tough Boots. And so there's some big brands. And I think you just have to be your authentic self and, go and meet these people. You got to go to trade shows. You got to go meet them and
Yeah.
like I'd love to network. So it's not as hard for me as it would maybe is for other people, but and then you really have to nurture and treasure those relationships too and take care of them.
For sure. But I love how simple that is, though. You're just like, just reach out to them. Like it's
Pick
I
up
mean, if
the
we're
phone.
gonna, yeah, it really is just putting it back to the simplicity of it. And I think this is something we get caught up in today's
hmm
environment. I know a lot of the clients that I work with are absolutely terrified of the idea of just picking up the phone and cold calling someone. And
Hmm.
it could be an email, perhaps, or you're reaching out on social media, whatever it might look like, depending on the partners you're trying to connect with and where they are that you can meet with
Hmm.
them. But I would feel like for something like LL Bean, like that's something that, yeah, pick up the phone and start calling them just
Hmm.
to get to the right person. And just like you said, be yourself and explain to them what is it you're doing, while also ensuring that you're positioning it in a way that they're going to be interested and they want to know more. Like you've got to hook them
Yes.
fairly
Yeah.
quickly in this conversation, but you don't need to sound like a news broadcaster, all sales,
Mm-mm.
like, hey, 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 I'm calling from
No.
Fish. You know what I mean? Like it can be very
Hmm.
authentic
Yeah,
and very
absolutely.
real. So good for you for, moving outside of, I mean, it sounds like it is in your comfort zone. For a lot of women, it's outside their comfort zone. So
Yeah.
good on you for
Yeah.
embracing that.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that you never know where your next big client is going to come from, but you can control that in a way if you are actually taking that initiative. So that's pretty
Absolutely.
powerful.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, is there, are there ways that you feel that you are empowering women through your brand? Are there ways that you're showcasing that empowerment, or is it something you're just kind of quietly doing just by being your everyday brand, essentially?
Well, I think we showcase it in a multitude of ways. One thing that we're trying to do now is expanding into the Southeast and other markets like the bass community. And, for some of these communities and the style of fishing that they do, they don't have a lot of clothes and nothing really special for women to wear. And so why can't we help figure that out? And, to me, it's really important to help build confidence with these gals, young or old, and get them out there and show them they can do whatever they put their minds to. They just need to have
Right.
a goal and figure out how they're going to do it, and what are they really committed to. So, you know.
So, what does it look like when you're coming up with a new line? What is the sort of the product development stage look like? Like, are you bringing in specific women? Are you doing focus groups? Are you doing surveys or drawing from your own experience? Like, how does take us through a little bit of the process of that?
So we have ambassadors. So we work with our ambassadors to come up with new things. A lot of it's my experience, and then just the friends that I'm fishing with and things that we see that could be an opportunity. Sometimes it's going to different trade shows or even different industries and looking at items maybe that they have that could be used for our industry. So we're trying to have more of a fashion base to the fishing without it being frilly and pink necessarily, but that
Right.
it's
But stylish.
stylish and it fits well and it's not silly, right? I mean, you got to have some fun with it, but you got to you want girls want to be they want to be respected too when they're out there on the water.
For
But they
sure.
also want to, and we have clients that want more muted tone colors and patterns, but then there's the ones that just love all the bright colors, and so
Right.
you have
So
to have a
trying to appeal
balance.
to, yeah, trying to
Yeah.
appeal to the broader
Hmm.
market while also not eliminating anyone and also not trying to appeal to absolutely everyone because then you would end up having way too many
Yeah.
lines, I'm sure, to keep up with too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're very size inclusive, so we go up to 3X to
That's great
X
too.
extra small to 3X. So, and I think we get a lot of appreciation for that, and gals just any number of times I've had them say thank you for creating this because we have something that we can wear. And then the guys say, hey, what about Fishe? We can use that. You can just change the letters a little bit.
But I love that too, though. When the men are starting to say, "Wait a minute, now that we're seeing what the women are wearing, we're kind of falling
Yeah.
behind a little bit
I
here
want
on
some
our
fun
side of
stuff
things."
too.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? Never say never, I suppose, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, you mentioned something that I want to circle back to. You talked about the ambassadors that you have. Tell me a little bit about that and how you grew the ambassadors. Like, what is an ambassador, first of all? Why don't we start with that?
So an ambassador for us is somebody that is active in the fly, especially in the fly fishing industry. We've expanded it now to the conventional and other types of fishing. but and that they represent themselves and the female in the outdoors and the way that we want to be represented. And they're active on social, they're out fishing actively, and they're good people and someone that you'd want to go fish with. So
So how do you bring them on as an ambassador? What is, did you just reach out to them and bring them on and they promote you? Is that sort of how that works?
yeah, so we right now, I think the last time we put out a call for ambassadors, we had 200 applicants.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is great.
That's
So
incredible.
then,
Yeah.
yeah, then the hard part is trying to pick,
Yeah.
the ladies, and we have them, they agree to do a certain amount of posting and video and stuff like that, and we'll have them help us in different trade shows that we do sometimes,
Right.
and try to get to know and build a relationships with them too. But we probably right now have about 20, and in the beginning we had probably half a dozen. So, but we keep the alumni on as well, and we try to kind of roll it every couple of years. We'll do a new call out for ambassadors.
So what inspired you to reach out to creating this like, sort of ambassador network? Was this a marketing strategy from early on? Is this something that came up as you were building the brand? What did this look like?
It kind of came up as we were building the brand that, and from people asking us, "Hey, do you have ambassadors? Can we, be part of your team and be part of your
Right.
community?" And it was really a way to celebrate women around the nation that are fishing and that love to fish and they love to teach people to, fish and share it. And there's just a certain joy around how much fun they're having out there, and celebrating it, and sharing it with their families, sharing it with their girlfriends, and other friends, and so.
So if someone's listening to this episode right now and they're thinking about entering an industry, we've had women on here in the past who are in more male-dominated industries. So maybe they're looking to enter an industry where they feel like they might be underrepresented in some way, and they want to break through with a new idea, a new concept, a new way of looking at things for them. What sort of advice would you give them for getting started?
Well, I would say be very focused on what you're trying to accomplish, really what's your ambition and what you're doing. And you just ignore the noise around you about why you can't do something and really focus on how you
Yes.
can. What's the opportunity? What can you do? You get lots of naysayers around you all the time, and you just have to really stay focused on where you're headed with your company and what you want to do with it, and how you're going to get there, and have a detailed plan.
I think that's a great idea for every entrepreneur that
Hmm.
don't focus on what you can't do, focus on what you can. If at the end of the day you're looking up and you're saying, well, the things that I can do are so limited, I'm never going to be able to get this going. Like maybe it is an idea that you need to abandon. But
Hmm.
if you really feel passionate about it and you see the path through it, then yeah, keep focusing on what you can do. Keep inching
Hmm.
through it as you need to, because I mean, just take a look at this is such a great example of what you can truly accomplish with that. What's sort of your vision for the future of, inclusive outdoor spaces and, and the fishing community and other sort of communities, outdoor related communities like that, and how Fishy's contributing to that? What's sort of your vision for the future of the company, the brand, and how it plays in those spaces?
Um, I think that it's an opportunity to just keep creating. I mean, for me, working in an industry mostly my life is mostly with guys, right? And now I'm doing
Right.
women's clothing and gear, and I it's just really an opportunity to create something that hasn't existed. Not to say we can't do something for the guys too, but I why not do it? And I think we're small and nimble enough that we can do it, whereas the bigger brands are like the female side of things is nichey. And I'm like, how can 21 million women be nichey? That's what I don't understand. So that doesn't make sense to me. But
Right, right. Well, I think I'm really so impressed by all that you're doing. And I think there's such an empowering aspect of this that comes with it. I think, we've talked about, I had one of my previous guests, Anastasia Hay, talks about female empowerment through what we wear. And I think this is a great example of that. Like when we are
mhm,
dressed the way that we want to be, when we look the way that we want to be, as women, we do feel better. We do feel
mhm,
more confident. And so I think that that's a great example of like what you are bringing to the fishing industry for so many women, 21 million for that matter. I mean, that's, like you said, that is a
yeah.
massive market of people who aren't being represented in the best way. So I think it's so empowering what you're doing and what you're bringing. So I appreciate you doing that. And you've got a special offer for our
Thank you.
listeners. So if anyone listening to this is like, I need to, first of all, she's been talking about the cool styles, the fun designs, and the way that they fit, and the overall design of all of the clothing that they've created. So check it out at fishywear.com. So Fishe, in case you're wondering, is Fishe. So Fishywear, Fishewear.com. And if you enter the code RWRB15OFF, as in Real Women, Real Business 15 off, you will get 15% off at Fishywear. So we'll be sure to include that in the show notes. So, Linda, this has been such a great conversation. I think that it's, again, such a unique topic, such a unique adventure that you've been on. And if you've got one piece of advice or one takeaway from this episode that you'd like to leave our listeners with today, what would that be?
I'd say get out of your comfort zone, and you're going to have great learning. And don't be afraid to pivot in your career like I did, and you'll be fine. Just go
I
for it.
always I always say the magic happens just outside of your comfort zone. That's where the real magic happens. I think that's great
Exactly.
advice.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
Linda, honestly, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such an honor.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you so
listen,
much. I appreciate it, Shauna Lynn.
thank you. And if you're listening to this episode and this is resonating with you, I really hope that you will continue to invite us in to join you on your journey week after week. And of course, the best way that you can support us is to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform, leave us a review as well. And of course, as always, share this episode with a woman in your life who you know is just going to get so much out of it, who's going to really benefit from it, who's going to really thrive from the lessons that we shared here today. And until next time, everyone, keep thriving.